John Layman, welcome and happy
Hey, thanks for having
2026
me.
to you. It's
Yeah, you
great. I was
too.
just last time we were speaking, you were causing international incident at Malta Comic Con, and can't take you anywhere.
That was a good time.
That was brilliant, and you made it to Popeye Village. I was so happy because I was speaking with John as well, and he and his wife and yourself, you all made it down. I think the day after I'd left,
Yeah,
it's a real
we
experience,
had
isn't it?
pretty we had really low expectations and it was really cool. Like it was a fun time and like really cool pictures. It was a great day.
When you arrive at the ticket booth and it looks like it's like a desert, and you think, "Oh my God, what's this going to be?" And then you walk down the path and turn the corner, and you see the water. I remember was like crystal blue. It was gorgeous, and the sets
Yeah.
are
Oh
all
yeah.
there. I, I can't recommend it enough. I'm going to become a tour ambassador for them. And
Well,
so at the
what I
moment,
really liked, I hadn't been to Malta. I went in 2019 and I don't feel like rideshare was the thing it is now. And the island's small enough you can pop across the island in 25 minutes. So you call an Uber, cost you 20 bucks or so and you're to the other side of the island. It was a great way to spend the day.
oh yeah, no, it's amazing. I've covered a lot of ground at it, but I haven't been to Gozo yet. Did you make it to Gozo?
Not this time, the time before.
Ah, very good, very good. I think that's the
Yeah.
last one. So that's the excuse I'm using to get invited back again. And have you got many shows lined up for 2026 at the moment, or is it early days for you?
No, not yet. I play things. I'm not a guy who schedules things out, and as I told you before off camera, we're looking to move from Phoenix to Portland this year. So kind of keeping things. I've got a couple invites to local-ish shows. Within like a state or two. And I'm like, I don't want to commit to BozoCon if I'm suddenly like 1,000 miles away and suddenly this is on my dime. So I'm being real tentative right now until I know what my schedule is.
I get you. You should see if anyone in Portland will invite you to a show and get them to cover the shipping of your move while you're doing it.
That's a great idea.
So just I suppose what would be the origin story for yourself, John, if we start at the beginning, if you could place the begin, as they say. What was the secret
Well,
origin of John Layman?
old guy, uh, so old that when Star Wars came out in 1977 and I'm, 10 years old, I was just obsessed with Star Wars. And, this is pre-VCR. This is pre, press a button and have it at your fingertips. It left the theater. Star Wars was gone. Uh,
Hmm.
and, I dreamed about the day where I could watch Star Wars every day. Now I'm sick to death of Star Wars. But, um, went to your corner 7-Eleven and here's Star Wars number 8, by Roy Thomas and Howard Chaykin, and the further adventures of Luke Skywalker. And I realized, hey, I can get a monthly fix of Star Wars just by going into my corner convenience store, and plunking a quarter or still only 35 cents or whatever it was. Um, and then, I'd go in on some week and oh, the new Star Wars wasn't out. Oh, what's this? ROM Space Knight. Oh, Micronauts. Oh, event like I started with kind of toys and licensed stuff and then moved, to superheroes, then, I'm reading X-Men and Titans and all that sort of stuff. And and I just wanted to be in comics. Pre-internet, pre they didn't have schools for for comics. So I became an English major because that's, writing and I wanted to write comics. And when I graduated from college, I moved to San Diego because I heard there was a big Comic Con there, which, by the standards of what it was in 1990, I parked, paid $5 and saw the entire show and during my lunch hour. And now it's cost thousands of dollars and there's hundreds of thousands. It's uh, I watched it grow every year, but got a job at Wildstorm as an assistant editor. Um, had a newspaper column, a comics column in the newspaper. Um, became an editor at Wildstorm, and then suddenly DC bought us, and I was magically a DC editor. Um, and about 5 years later, and about 200 edited books, I'm like, well, I don't want to be an editor. I want to be a writer. I've I've read a ton of good scripts. I've read a fair amount of bad scripts. I know people. I know how to do this. I'm going to make the jump to freelance. So that would have been around 2001-ish. And, you start small and you just hope every gig is bigger than the next or better than the next.
When you were with Wildstorm, was that at the HQ at Malibu that they had? Or am I
Not
getting that?
Malibu, La Jolla.
La Jolla. Okay.
Malibu is La Jolla is the fancier part of San Diego. Malibu is LA. But yeah, uh we had offices in a bank building that overlooked the water, which I could only imagine what rent was. But these were the days where they'd cancel a book when it got down to 35,000, which
What?
yeah, yeah. Uh, and it was coming. I wasn't there for the boom, but like it was the tail end of the boom where, these 19-year-olds were getting brand new cars from their royalties, off Gen 13 2 or whatever.
Well, well,
Yeah, it was something.
what a time. It was funny when you were mentioning comics pre-internet because just there Christmas passed, my sister gave me a gift of Tishin, they do the big reprints
Oh
of
yeah,
like
sure,
Golden
sure, sure.
Zippers. So I got this giant oversize Amazing Spider-Man, the first, I think it's Amazing Fantasy 15, then 1 to 19, and then the annual. And what it is, it's photographs of the original comics reproduced and blown up. So it's not re-edited. It basically is close to having an actual copy in front of you. And what I've read for the first time were the letter pages from like the very first issues, like the first 7 issues or so of Spider-Man. And what is incredible is, okay, so it was pre-internet, decades before. I
Sure.
always had in my mind fandom was such a quaint and innocent, but then you read the letter page, and some of it is like scathing. And I'm like, oh my
Oh yeah,
God,
yeah.
fandom
They
has.
printed all kinds of stuff back then. And it was weird. I remember one time you just grab letters and you printed them, and I printed a letter that said a bunch of stuff, but one line said how he didn't like this or that writer. And that writer called me up and fucking chewed me a new one because he thought that I was like, I don't know, a proxy. If I printed this letter, I must agree. What am I doing? Bad mouthing this guy? And it's like, dude, I barely read the letter. I just, it was on the pile and grabbed it and, did my little one sentence reply. But yeah, I kind of learned from that.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
just, I was like, any illusion I had is shattered. I'm like, we were always like this as fans. We were never happy. But
well,
and
I'm in I wrote a letter to Micronauts that got published in like 43, issued 43, and they reprinted the letters in the Marvel omnibuses.
awesome.
And so I've got my letter in there. And what's weird is back in those days, they printed your full address. So, somebody could come to my house with a baseball bat and like, you don't like Micronauts, but I was just a kid and I said some kind of assholish things. I'm like, oh, get rid of this character. This sucks. This sucks. And I'm like, well, that wasn't very diplomatic. And they printed it and had some kind of clever reply.
I think it was actually George R. R. Martin. His first published work was actually a fan letter in Fantastic Four. He
Oh,
was
wow.
saying in the 80 ones, yeah, because he's a huge comic book fan. I remember it was like on a documentary or something, and he was saying, yeah, and I think if you look at the reprints, you'll find it. So I don't know if he's at the same address though, if anyone's gonna
Oh, I
go
would
look him
hope
up.
he's in a mansion by now, or
Who
several.
knows?
But I was reading the Micronauts one, and like I'm on like issue 3 letters page. It's like, oh shit, Kurt Busiek. Like
Oh
you look
well.
around in the letters, and it's like you see some from Cat Ironwood, who was a Dark Horse editor at one point. Like you see names that come back in history.
Oh yeah, 100%. And from your editorial days, did you do much in the way of portfolio reviews, like reviewing, or was it more in you were in the production
I,
side and
I did, but I hated it, and I always
mm,
tried to get out of it. Like
yeah.
I've always told artists looking for portfolio reviews, you'll have a better luck talking to an artist because an artist has the actual vocabulary. I can
Hmm.
just be kind of like, the generic stuff. Oh, you need to work on, anatomy. Oh, this is good. Work on your storytelling. But like, you want the down, and you go to editors for portfolio reviews to get a job. But if you really want to learn, talk to other artists. You know, they're the ones, you know, in the trenches getting their hands dirty, and they know exactly how to pick apart a page or a panel.
Yeah, no, it's funny. A friend of mine, Luca Passari, we were at New York Comic Con. So Luca's originally from Italy. He lives in Brazil now, I think. And we had met up at because he was living at the UK. So we're in Ireland, and then we met up a few shows, became friends. And we found ourselves all at New York Comic Con one year. And Marvel would do a lot of portfolio reviews. He couldn't get a chance. So he went around to Artist Alley and he showed other artists. And the next thing, the son of a gun, he got a he got a Marvel gig afterwards because the artist, whoever it was he showed to in Artist Alley said, "This is good," introduced him to the editor that way.
Yeah.
And so it does pay. Sometimes people will go, "I'll go to a convention, I want to meet this editor." It doesn't happen. But don't underestimate the networking at, Artist Alley and going up to fellow artists and such and,
Yeah, for sure.
stuff like that.
I also say don't go to conventions thinking you're going to get work.
Mm.
It's better to walk away with five friends than one job because those five friends will, you know, either come up with you or help you down. You know, the guy who's just some kind of schlub next to you is editor in chief next day. I mean, that's the nature of comics. You never know who's going to end up where. So, you know, don't don't star fuck, you know, be cool to everybody.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's nice to be nice, and it does. Like people would prefer working with, and someone who's decent and kind and professional than someone who could be really talented but it's a nightmare to work with. It's
Well, have you heard the rule of two, the two out of three rule? You either have to be good or fast or cool. And if you're two of those three, you'll always get work in comics.
awesome. They take that to the bank.
Yeah.
And when you transition over to being a writer, then, because obviously it's a very difficult way to break into comics, but you kind of had that experience well in editorial, so you obviously had your own pool of connections and such. But was that intimidating for you to switch over to become like full-time writing then, having been in the editorial
Oh,
chair?
for sure, for sure. You know, you know, pulled in some favors. I did an image book, and I got variant covers from Frank Quietly, John Cassaday, and Sam Keith, which, you know, that's all because I was an editor and they were pals. And uh, like Frank Quietly, I literally paid him in Twinkies because he had, you know, a little kid at the time who couldn't get Twinkies, you know, in Scotland. So I got a case of Twinkies and, you know, mailed him that, you know, in exchange for a cover. So, you know, that's a pretty funny story.
Now Frank's gonna get nothing but offers and Twinkies now.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then when some of the IPs you've worked on as well, like you've done everything from like Batman and like, have you ever faced this? Is I was a question I'd like to ask. Obviously, you would be a fan of some of these characters and IPs, and then suddenly you're writing for them. Is there ever a moment of intimidation or fear at the blank page when you're like, okay, now you're in the driver's seat? Or does it feel something familiar because you've been reading the material, you've grown up around
Oh,
these comics?
the fear still hasn't gone away. You know,
Mm.
I get that every, you know, hundreds of books later or how much I've ever read you, I don't get out of it. I don't, you know, there's still the imposter syndrome, the, you know, when are they going to figure out I'm a fraud? Uh, and then once in a while, I just have a week where I'm just hitting it out of the park and I'm like, God damn, I'm a comic book writer. And I had that actually this week. This was a very good, productive week. And I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, no, that's great. No, it's fantastic. And it's something I hear with particularly stand-up comedians where it's like there's an element of fear that they need when they go on
Yeah, yeah.
stage. And it's like they think the moment I lose that fear, I think I'm missing something. I don't know if it's the best way, but I do see a lot of creatives, a lot of artists seem
Well,
to have that sense.
you know, when you're younger and hungrier, you take whatever you can. You know,
Mm.
you do whatever you can. Like I didn't really care about Thundercats, and I kind of blundered into them. And in retrospect, maybe I wasn't as respectful enough to the property or the fans. And I've since learned, you know, I'm in a position to say no to things now. You know, I wasn't 26 years ago. Um, but you know, like an editor came to me recently. He's like, "Hey, do you want to write this license thing?" And I'm like, that, you know, I appreciate the work, I appreciate the offer, but I wouldn't do the best job. I'm not a fan of that. I don't give a damn. and I got to save myself for something I do and hire someone who cares. Hire someone who's going to give it the most love. Um, and you actually, I think, you earn an editor's respect when you say no to something that you're not the perfect fit for. They realize you're not just in it for the money. There's a bit of integrity that goes along with it.
Absolutely, yeah, because that's always it's a worry. Because I know I've experienced that in my own career, where you say, if I say no this time, will the
Yeah.
opportunity swing back around? Sometimes the
Yeah, and like,
stars
oh,
don't lie.
did I just say no to paying my rent this month?
Yeah, this is it. I always like sharing because we do the Popeye strips here with King Features, and like we don't do original, we just reprint on the license, but we still get a chance. But originally, years before, I had an opportunity. I think it was when Popeye was turned 80 or something, but it just wasn't the time. So we kind of let it slip by, and then I was like, that's probably won't get a chance to do Popeye again. It was actually last year when I went to Popeye's Village the first time in Malta that we ended up getting it then. So I was like, yeah, sometimes you just gotta
Yeah.
wait it out, But the fair's always on you for sure. But you've also had experiences with license IPs and of course your own creator own like Chew and everything. So what's the big like which do you prefer? Do you have a preference like writing for IPs or your own work or is
No,
it
in some ways it's a little bit of a different part of your brain, and then on the other hand, you're working you're when you're working for an IP, a license, whether it's Batman or Popeye or whatever. um, you've got an editor who's giving you a page rate, which is always nice. But they're kind of making sure that you're not doing, well, you shouldn't do anything that's not true to the character anyways. But you've
Mhm.
got someone, a guardian angel over your shoulder. And it's good in DC because hey, I've got a scene with Hawkman. They're like, well, Hawkman's over here this week. Better use this character because I can't keep track of everything that's happening at DC, let alone what's happening 4 months from now in books I haven't read. So you're when you're doing creator own, I always say, you're God. You can do whatever you want. If you want to absolutely play God, create your own stuff because no one can stop you, even if you do something really stupid. But, Batman, he's not gonna kill a bunch of school children, and nor should he. But if you write that scene, an editor's gonna be like, whoa, 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 no. Um, so, that goes back to being true to the character and, caring enough about the character to be true to it.
And with Chew, obviously huge, huge success. And what was your, you know, intent when doing it yourself? Is this something that you thought, here's a story, it's something you're very passionate about, you wanted to get it out there,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then what happens? Did you think this is going to blow up the way it did?
Oh, never, never. In
Mhm.
fact, I had been pitching it for a few years, and
Mm.
every time there was a new Vertigo editor, I thought it would be a good Vertigo book. And at the time, I needed a page rate. Like I could not pay for this thing. And what happened was I blundered into a kind of a long-term temporary video game job, and I was suddenly making great money. But as soon as the video game ended, the gravy, they basically said it, we're going to let half the staff go, including the writer. Who needs a writer for a game that's already come out? So I had a clock ticking, but I was making great money. And I'm thinking, you know what? Nobody wants my stupid bird flu cannibal book. But I believe in it. I think it's funny. Um, I'm going to lose money on this thing, but I'm going to finance it and I'm going to show it to editors. Hey, here's this book. A few people liked it. It was a cult hit. Give me work. Uh, so that was the only expectation for Chew. And then it just came out at the right time and, inexplicably blew up. And it took about till like issue 4 where I'm like, oh, this is real. This isn't this has legs. What do I want to do? And all my favorite books when I look around, like Scalped or Preacher or Why the Last Man, everything seems to be 60 issues. That seems to be like the sweet spot
Mhm.
to tell a novel length story. I think Bone was around there, but it, doesn't go up its own ass in pretentiousness like arguably Sandman did at different points. Um, but like we're like, look, we have the sales. I think we can get to 60. Uh, you make you make a mini that has an ending, so it's satisfying if it ends at 5, but still, has enough story seeds that it can go on. And I had the whole thing mapped out, and very early on, I said, we're going to go 60, and we did.
When you're saying mapped out as well, do you have a particular process to each time you start a script? It's something I'm always curious because I like obviously teaching. We can't teach students ideas, it's a kind of like a spark, but we can kind of give them exercises to how to not be intimidated by the blank page. You have like
Yeah.
spider diagrams, or you might do like a rough outline or dictate.
Uh,
And do
no,
you do anything?
I'm terrible in that I don't do like I sit here for weeks staring at my desk, and my wife's just like, "You're just watching videos, you're just watching TikTok or whatever." It's like, "No, I'm thinking," and then like it reaches a point where it just kind of like explodes out of me, and I will literally have like pages and scenes and stuff in my head, but I usually don't commit it to paper until it's ready. And I'm not a guy who does a bunch of drafts. Like usually it's been ruminating, and at this point I'm so late and so panicky. I'm just like it all comes out when it has to. And it's a terrible process. I don't recommend it. But yeah, I'm the guy who sits on it in my head, torturing myself until it's ready, and then I get it to a page. And usually most of the time it's fully formed. That being said, the ex-editor in me, if there's, if the enemy to getting things done is like trying to make it perfect and just noodling and noodling, but if it feels good enough, you move forward. But if there's something in the back of your head, if there is something wrong, I gotta fix it. Like, it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while it's like, nope, it's not ready. That I gotta rewrite this page, scene or page. I may have to throw the whole goddamn thing out and start over again, but it's not. I know when it's not ready, and when is, I don't look backwards.
It's good that you're able to, you have that capacity in yourself to make that call because sometimes, as you're saying, it's not what you do all the time. And I think sometimes people, anyone who's like art-based, creative, the search for perfection is endless.
Yeah.
So like they never get around to actually submitting or just letting go. But it's great that you kind of know, okay, this on this occasion, yes, but you're not doing it all the time.
Yeah. Well,
And
something that was also, I mean, it took me a few years, it took me many years to get to this, and I'm really proud that I did. Like, I'll get a page from an artist, and maybe it's not exactly what I asked for. And I'll give you an extreme circumstance. When I was an editor, I was working with this like youngish writer who had visions of being Grant Morrison. But I would get pages from him, and he'd be like, my guy he's a real like left brain thinker. He's very creative. He's not good with fact. I think I think he'd be left-handed, and his watch would be on his left hand. Could we get a correction? And I'm just thinking, okay, you're overthinking this, and what you're gonna do with these little penny ante corrections is you're gonna demoralize your artist. And really, when before I ask for a change, I'm like, will changing this change make it for a better reading experience for even a single reader? Is anyone going to give a shit other than me? And if the answer is no, or if the answer is 99%, if like most people are not, don't bother the artist with them. Keep the artist happy and moving and productive. And like the like a good example of this is the last page of Chew. I said, Rob, this is what I want, do this. And he did it, but he did it in a completely different way that was in my head. And I kind of wanted to change. It was the last page, but then I'm like, this is his book as well. Just because he didn't do what was in my head, I should have explained it better because he gave me everything I asked for. He is my partner. I'm gonna let it go. And I have this story, but wish we would have changed that page. Like you let go. It didn't matter. Everyone was happy.
At the end of the day, it's a collaboration, isn't it? You know, it's a
Yeah,
collaborative
yeah. And you got
process.
to remember this. Your artist is not your slave or your servant. You know, it's your partner. And you know, you keep your partner happy, you're going to get your best from them.
Well, obviously now we're talking across oceans, different countries, thanks to like Zoom and stuff. Is there any preference that you have now when working with your fellow collaborators? Like, is it easy now just to like FaceTime someone or instant
Oh, for sure.
messenger or yeah?
For sure, for sure. And also, but another thing to like working with people is every artist is different. Like
Mhm.
some people they want that attaboy every freaking page. They want a bunch of feedback. They want to talk. They want to throw their ideas. Some people want a script and hey, I'll see you in 30 days, Leave me alone. I'll call you if you got any questions. So you really got to kind of kind of figure out uh what your artist wants and what's the ideal, circumstance for that. A good thing when you get a new like Batman book or whatever, you go into the artist, hey, what don't you want to draw? What do you hate? 90% of the time it's horses. Uh and what do you want to draw? When I worked on Batman, I figured out very quickly that Jason Fabok um wanted toys. Like he wanted a new Batcopter, he wanted a new Batmobile, he wanted like as long as I gave him a different freaking toy to play with every issue, he was happy and he did great work.
It's awesome. And coming up in the industry, did you have any like standout mentors along the way, or did you meet any of your heroes from when you would have like been reading, like being a reader yourself in comics, and you had like a pinch me, I can't believe I'm working with this person moment?
Well, yes, I mean, I've had it's weird because I've been on the phone with Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman, met a lot of the greats, but the only time I can remember being like straight out tongue-tied is I ended up at a meal with Dave Gibbons, and I was just that I couldn't have been a nicer, more regular guy, but just something about where I was in my life when Watchmen hit, to be sitting next to this guy, like, was just too much. And it's nice when you end up friends with somebody who's like Sam Keith and I, we were great friends and we would call and no such thing as a short conversation with Sam. We would talk for, 3 hours. And then the worst part is I knew he was drawing the whole time. And, as a writer, it's like, you just ate up half my day, you bastard. Uh, but it's really nice. I mean, to both work with, somebody that you grew up loving, but also becoming their friend, realizing that they're more than just a great artist. These are good people.
No, awesome. Have you got a chance to check out Confabulation, the biography, Dave Gibbons' autobiography?
Oh, no, I have not.
Check it out, and if you can, check out Dave actually recorded the audiobook of it on
Oh,
Audible.
wow.
And
Wow.
it's great because he's still you hear Dave Gibbons do his German accent, his Spanish accent, his Glaswegian accent. But it's really, really interesting because we had him on a few episodes back, and he's a gent and he came in, spoke to students, and I was aware of the autobiography, hadn't got around to it yet, but I said I'll get around to it. And I checked out the audio version, and it's like some stories in it, man. So 100%, if you get the
Oh,
chance,
yeah, I have no doubt.
confabulation. And at the moment, is there any upcoming projects that you have happening now? Anything that you can talk about, or is everything NDA'd up to the hilt?
Well, so I don't know if this happened when I was in Malta, but I got pulled off of Titans, which sucks. And
Mhm.
I also got pulled off of The Scorched, which were my two monthly gigs. And nothing against me as far as I know, but like 23 issues of The Scorched, 17 issue of Titans, they got to rearrange the deck chairs every once in a while. They have to be like, oh, new jumping on point, new creative team, new roster. So that I think my big thing that's announced right now is a Rocketeer book. Um,
Awesome.
using an old kind of the skeleton of a story from Dave Stevens, and they're
Mhm.
actually like repurposing art, so I'm getting some Dave Stevens covers, which is pretty
Nice.
cool. Um, with this guy named Jacob Edgar, who's got this really sort of Darwin Cook kind of Bruce Timm kind of like
Mhm.
very kind of simple retro. I mean that's he's not trying to do Dave Stevens, which nobody could.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it hasn't been revealed, but there are some surprises and there are some surprise guest stars in this Rocketeer thing. Part of it was Dave Stevens had this idea where we were going to meet this analog, uh, and but since he passed, in 2009 or whatever it was, that character has gone public domain, so we get to
Ah,
actually use the character. But they're keeping it quiet for now to like I guess surprise people when it comes out. But I'm writing this really crazy crossover with Rocketeer, and it's going to be a blast.
that's amazing. And were you a fan of the Rocketeer
Oh
franchise
yeah,
before coming into it?
yeah.
Yeah, big fan. Yeah.
And even more than that, Dave Stevens' art, like, it was really I was young enough to that I was just realizing that, oh, hey, artists have different styles. Like there's a point where, comic books are all the same, and then I think it was Michael Golden the first time I realized like, oh wait, this guy doesn't look like everyone else. And, artists don't look like once you figure that out, man, you can figure out, who to love, who to love most.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And are you still collecting yourself? Like, do you have like a pull? Or are you more of a trade
I,
guy now or
yeah,
whatever?
I'm definitely a trade guy. I'm not a collector in any means, but you give me the biggest, most expensive slip-covered, leather-bound hardcover, and I will just drool all over myself to buy a book for the fifth time, in the most premium edition I possibly can.
I think it was when we were in Malta, we went for a wander and we must have found not a comic shop, seemed to be like a small manga shop. It was just we just
Oh yeah, yeah.
randomly found it, had the massive Superman book, and I was just looking at it going, that'll cost me if I put that in a suitcase.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, the hardback, the quality of printing's astonishing now that we're able to achieve. Obviously with the fine binding and like the omnibuses now and everything,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
it's
mean
nice.
those Taschen books you were talking about. I have some over here. I got a little Nemo that's this
Wow.
big, and then a Crazy Cat that's even bigger. I mean, like they put the artist editions to shame. They're so big.
When walking on Chew or collecting like editions, so they say it's gone back to reprint, is there anything that you kind of do you have any say or sway in the like production of the book, the printing itself
Oh
that you
yeah,
would like
yeah,
to
yeah.
do?
They
Yeah?
they Image is real good about that. They'll tell you, hey, what paper you want. They'll send you like binding specs and all that. But like once we sort of got it down to a science. Once we got the hardcover, the absolute, we're just like, okay, just do it like that. And even going forward on trades, I'm just like, I want it just like the first two trade. Use the same cover stock, use the same interior stock. It just like I know it and it works for me. But that being said, if you're going through image and like, I want a weird like 8.5 by 12 and 3/4, like weird size, and I want foil and all this, if you've got the money and you're willing to pay the production costs, the image will let you do whatever you want.
That's great. And
Or at
then
least at least you have the opportunity, and they may argue that, talk you out of it because you're being crazy.
I can imagine onto that one. And when working like with a credit on image, like do you still have a chance to like appoint your own editor or
You
is
could. I mean,
yeah.
I'm inherently cheap, and
Mhm.
Rob Guillory did the coloring and all the art, and then I did the lettering and all the like design and production. So when it came to cut a check, we just split that in half.
Perfect.
So it's the less people, the less money you have to do. So if I can ever be in a two-man band, and I wish I could draw because I could cut a lot of crazy artists out, uh, but like it's the best case scenario. And I also say, as a writer who can't draw, like lettering is a really good way to bring your words across really evocatively and control the page in a way that you can't if someone else is lettering. And I could technically edit as well and like rewrite on the fly, but I tend to the letterer and the writer are two different people, and by the time I'm lettering, I'm not rewriting, it's the writer has moved on, now it's the letterer's domain, but I really enjoy lettering. It's a different like side of your head, and when you're a comic book letterer, you are lettering as fast as you can while doing quality of work because you earn a page rate. But if
Mhm.
I'm lettering Chew, which is mine, I can sit on my couch in the evening watching a TV show and spend an hour on a sound effect, which
Mhm.
isn't cost effective in any way, but it's your own book. You're going to have it
Mhm.
forever. Couldn't do it if someone was paying me. I'd go broke. But I love the luxury of really being able to fool around and really fine tune and have fun with my own lettering.
Yeah, it's so funny. Literally today, we're outside of term, but I had a couple of students come in collect some Bristol board for their semester one projects, and one of them is leaning more towards writing and illustration, completely understandable. But I was just saying to him in second semester, we're looking at lettering and how that would be, because I was using Robert Kirkman as an example, because he did a lot of his own
Yeah.
lettering early on, and I was just saying the exact same. If you can, just to have that contribution onto the page, cut out some of the middleman stuff, particularly if they're doing indie stuff. Yeah, it's just,
Well, it's
it's crazy.
also really educational because especially like prose writers, when prose writers come over to comics, like they tend to just put way too many words on a page and cover the art and like you really when you letter yourself, you kind of figure out what how many balloons can go on a page or a panel before I'm ruining people's enjoyment by just making, write a freaking novel if it's a marriage of art and words, and the art is worth 1,000 words. So you'll never learn that quicker than lettering your own stuff.
100%. And how did yourself and Rob meet then? So, like, did you guys know each other before Chew, or was it when you were working
No,
on
I
Chew?
uh I had this video game job and I was determined to oh this is actually funny because I'd been pitching Vertigo every time there was a new Vertigo editor, but I never pitched Image. Like they were my ace in the hole. And at that point, I had been in comics for 7 years. Eric Stevenson and I were friendly, and I just called Eric one day and said, "Look, man, I got this Cannibal Bird Flu, comedy book. I'm looking for an artist. I have money. Like, do you recommend anybody?" And he didn't have anybody, but it's like, "Hey, I really like this idea. Find somebody, who find somebody who doesn't suck that I would approve." And we'll do the book. So I had an automatic green light, which that was fantastic. But and I was also able to play the bad guy with, in this case, Rob. Like, look, I've got this approved, but if Eric says no to you, I'm gonna find someone he says yes to. So I didn't have to be the bad guy, which is good as a coward. Um, so I was going to my various friends and being like, "Look, I've got a budget. I've saved up my video game money. I'm going to pay an artist every issue for this." And of course, people are recommending their friend, and it's like, this isn't quite the artist you want, but he's a really good guy. And it's like, okay, well, but I want the artist I want. So it took a while, but someone's like, check out this Rob Guillory guy, and we met. Like I basically arranged, like, hey, I'm going to be at the Hyatt bar on Friday night. Let's talk a bit. And turns out I was drunk enough. I told him the whole ending the first time we met. Um, and I told him I'd been pitching, Vertigo. And so we did some sample pages, and they were really kind of like Guy Davis, kind of like, scratchy and vertigo-y, and nothing against Guy Davis. I mean, fantastic, but like I wanted I wanted something kind of goofier for Chew. Like I wanted you to laugh at him eating a toe, not like be horrified. And so I'm like, I told Rob, like he gave me this art. I'm like, ooh, this is not the guy. I gotta cut this guy loose. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like I'm looking at your web page and you got this like cartoony shit over here. Why didn't you draw it like that? Like, what is this? And he's like, well, that's my style. But no one ever asked me to draw in my style. They always tell me to draw in a Vertigo style or, try to do Mignola or try to do, Rob Liefeld or who. No one had ever said be yourself. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I want. And of course, it was very freeing for him, to tell him to, you know, be himself and not try to ape somebody else. And it really, he just flowered after that.
Oh, awesome. No, it's brilliant. And when it came to the obviously big success, both critical as well, like with the Eisner Awards and everything, that's like the highest that you can get
Yeah.
within the industry. How was that like? What was that experience like for you to, room for your
It,
peers?
the whole thing was really surreal. I had never gone to a foreign show before, and we were the debut book from a an Italian company called Bow, and they flew us out, and we were actually in Italy when Joe Keating called and said we were nominated. And then it got even weirder because um, during uh, like a week or two before the show, and this tells me the fix was in. They already knew we were going to win, but we got picked to have a documentary crew tail us for this Morgan Spurlock Comic Con. He was going to follow like 15 people and then like take like the best four and make them into a movie. But we had a documentary crew, which I'm sure this happens everywhere. At first, you're very guarded, and then by the end, you're talking shit about your in-laws and smoking weed on a camera and all this stuff you should not do. Um, but there was a point where when we won the Eisner, like they were kind of egging us. Like I'm a pretty, I'm not gonna gush. I'm not gonna cry or give the kind of histrionics they want. In reality TV, and Rob's even more laid back. So when we won, the camera people are like, "Hey, aren't you excited? Let's see you excited." And I'm like, "Well, this is me excited. I'm not gonna, make a jackass out of myself." And like I think we were they wanted more reality TV drama. So we were on the cutting room floor. We didn't make the actual movie if it even came out. But like the whole situation was just completely weird. And in a I had been doing cons and happy if I walked away from a day show with $50 to buy pints for my mates. And here I was like winning the Eisner and having like lines around the block, and it was weird. um
It's awesome.
but unless you're Mike Mignola or Jim Lee, don't get used to it, 'cause 10 years ago at this point. And I either wasn't ambitious or talented enough to sort of like keep the like Scott Snyder just keeps the hits coming. Uh I was I saw the limits of my ambition too. Like, I was happy I got Chew. I don't need to write, nine flagship, big two books or whatever.
Sometimes it's like the cherry on top, and then it's like, but then to be content and happy and fulfilled in your work, like everyone has their own, like everyone says, I want to be successful, I want this, that, and like the definition's completely different. And like for
Yeah.
me, it's like if I'm getting paid to do what I do and I can pay my rent, I'm like I consider myself very successful, and that's all I ever need, So, but it's lovely to hear. And did you ever have the chance actually to actually meet Will Eisner at all?
Um, yes and no. Like so my first year at San Diego Con was around uh Jesus, 1995, 1990. No, 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 no. 1991 was my first year at San Diego. And I actually walked around, I think early on with Wildstorm, maybe I was with Scott Doonbeer, maybe I was with Jim Lee, and Jack Kirby, Will Eisner, and Stan were just walking together, and they stopped and they either said hi to Doonbeer or maybe it was Jim, whoever I was with. I can't really remember, but I'm this little 23-year-old just kind of like hovering in the back, and I got an autograph in my autograph book with a little tiny like a spirit mask or whatever, but it wasn't a legitimate interaction. It was just me standing there, but I got to see him. That's more than more people can say.
That's brilliant. That's awesome. I'm friends with Alex Saviak, and he was saying to me that he actually, like, obviously it wasn't planned, but he ended up drawing the last Will Eisner story because they were doing, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. They had The Escapist, and they made the fictional comic with Dark Horse into a comic.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then Eisner did a short story, but he only did the breakdowns. He had to go on for heart surgery. So Alex went in then, did the finishes and all, and Will
Ah,
loved it, sent him a note, said, thank you so much, look forward to walking again. But then, fortunately, that's when he suddenly he passed. Then shortly thereafter, I think he was after the surgery, he was on the golf course or something. But it's just surreal for Alex because he had, worked in Eisner studios before, and it's crazy. He'll have stories like if there was a flood in the leak in the studio, they'd be using like old art pages, to cover
Oh,
up. Like, oh my God.
yeah. Well, I admit I got spoiled because, back in those early days of Comic-Con, Will Eisner could walk through it wasn't, someone he would get mobbed now or anyone of that, but it was more casual and accessible. And I saw Stanley a thousand times, and I just assumed Stan would be around forever.
Mm,
And there's a lot of people I interacted with, knowing we'd always get next time. And then like John Cassaday, yeah, he was one of my best friends, and we kind of fell. We talked less during COVID, just
mhm,
because we were the type of friends that we could always pick up right where we left off. Didn't
yeah,
matter because there'd always be next time until
yeah,
there isn't. So coming out of COVID, I got a lot more like again, Cassidy, we had 1,000 adventures together, but
mhm,
this was pre cell phone. I don't have a single picture with me and what was one of my best friends. So I came out of COVID really like, oh hey, I barely know you. Let's get some pictures. I want to commemorate everything now.
yeah. That's it. It's no saying like time is the only currency we ever spend without knowing the balance. It's
Yeah,
like one of
yeah.
those. So yeah, no, it's been often. And then obviously, like comics so collaborative, you've had the opportunity then to, reach out and work with so many. And obviously you still like when you go to like shows or if you're searching online, are you constantly on the outlook as well for like new collaborators, or is that
Not
just
not
comes with the
not
projects?
so much. I'm pretty, I'm not I've never been very prolific, and I've been really lucky that like whenever I get a creator on gig, not a create whenever I get a work for hire gig, they usually have an artist in mind. If I have any say, I'll be like, "Hey, call John McCrae, call Rob, or call somebody I'm buddies with or want to work with." But I really only think I've been saddled with a couple shitty people over 26 years or whatever. So like I didn't know who this Jacob Edgar guy was that I'm doing Rocketeer with, and I'm coming away with a new friend and a new guy that I can't wait to work with again. So I'm kind of happy to be set up because most of the time it's a positive experience. And man, looking for creator own, like it's tough. You gotta find somebody who's right for the gig, temperamentally, right for you. You gotta work with this person, and then you gotta worry about all the business stuff and ownership and money. And I hate it. So I only really want to do one, two creator owned things at a time because it's
Mhm,
it's so much more work as a dumb comic book guy who's not a business guy and doesn't want to be a business guy.
mhm.
You can't separate the business shit from the creative stuff, and I hate it. So that's a part of work for hire you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, that's true. And John, this has been fantastic. Like, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks for sharing your
Anytime,
insights and stories. Really appreciate
anytime.
catching up. If folks want to follow anything like how you're doing, are you on any social media
I'm
channels where you
on
post everything?
Blue Sky as the Mighty Layman, and I try to make it not that comic centric. Like the people who just bang their drum every half hour, like these are the people I end up muting. So a lot of cat pictures, a lot of K-pop, news of the music I'm listening to. Enough comic book talk that you know what I'm up to without me bludgeoning you over the head with nonstop comic book shit. So yeah, Blue Sky, the Mighty Layman.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Hopefully you have a chance to catch up again, either online or in person in the future.
Yeah,
Thanks a million.
anytime you want me back, happy to do it, and hopefully our paths will cross sometime in the next year.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thanks so much.